And right now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu taking aim at the Iran nuclear deal. The Prime Minister warning the member nations at the UN in very stern words, this Iran nuclear deal will not promote peace, but instead make war more likely. Now, this speech is his first to the UN since President Obama announced the deal with Iran.
So after 3 days of listening to world leaders praise the nuclear deal with Iran, I begin my speech today by saying, ladies and gentlemen, check your enthusiasm at the door. Does anyone seriously believe that flooding a radical theocracy with weapons and cash will curb its appetite for aggression? I've long said that the greatest danger facing our world is the coupling of militant Islam with nuclear weapons. And I'm gravely concerned that the nuclear deal with Iran will prove to be the marriage certificate of that unholy union. I know that some well-intentioned people sincerely believe that this deal is the best way to block Iran's path to the bomb. But one of history's most important yet least learned lessons is this: the best intentions don't prevent the worst outcomes. 70 years after the murder of 6 million Jews, Iran's rulers promised to destroy my country, murder my people. And the response from this body, the response from nearly every one of the governments represented here, has been absolutely nothing. Utter silence. Deafening silence.
Director General of the Israeli Foreign Ministry, Dore Gold, goes on the record. Ambassador, nice to talk to you, sir.
My pleasure.
Ambassador, today the Prime Minister of Israel, in a very forceful speech to the UN, talking about the dangers of this deal with Iran. Do you have the sense that anyone in that audience gets it, gets what Prime Minister Netanyahu is trying to convey to them?
Well, I think the theme that Prime Minister Netanyahu put forward was not just the issue of nuclear weapons in the hands of Iran, which it in itself is a sufficient subject. I think what he wanted to also stress was how Iran is going to exploit the monies that it's going to obtain with the removal of sanctions and continue its military expansion in the Middle East. And that's threatening a number of countries that he mentioned by name. Of course, Syria, of course, Kuwait, of course, North Yemen and various parts of Yemen, and of course, Israel. The Ayatollah Ali Khamenei spoke about militarizing the West Bank. So we're watching very carefully how Iranian weapons are going to come into the areas around Israel, and I think the Prime Minister warned about that today.
I actually agree. That's almost the greater danger, because once the sanctions are relieved and they have all that money, they can do whatever they want with it. It's sort of hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube on that. The nuclear weapons, you can probably stop a program in process. One of the other things that he talked about, of course, is the relationship with the United States. Is that a frosty relationship? I know we're very close friends, but there's a deep divide between the Prime Minister and the President on this.
Well, I think what unites us is greater than what divides us. And I think that came through in the Prime Minister's speech. Just even on the issue of Hezbollah and Iranian military activism, they're here in the Western Hemisphere. They were planning a mass casualty attack in Washington, D.C., aiming at the Saudi ambassador to the United States. And they did that even before they had this nuclear deal. Now, with a possibility of obtaining nuclear weapons, Iran will be much more active here, and the money that they're getting from this deal will allow them to also pose a threat to the United States.
I also thought it was very interesting. He talked about the ICBM. He says that Iran is trying to develop. Iran can reach Israel right now with the missiles, but what he told that audience there is that if Iran has an ICBM and can put a nuclear warhead on it at some point, it'll reach everybody.
That's absolutely true. Iran has been working on space lift vehicles that put very simple payloads into orbit. But once you can put a payload a weapon into orbit, you can also have an ICBM that can strike at the United States. And just think, let's say in 10, 15 years, Iran will be able to produce as much weapons-grade uranium as it wants. Well, then it could basically outfit an entire arsenal of nuclear weapons, of nuclear-tipped missiles that'll pose a threat to Europe, to the United States in the future.
And we have a special guest tomorrow night. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will be right here to go on the record. That's tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern, right here on the record.